deep, dark, the source of infinite mystery. The great mystery is death, massive and beyond understanding. But life is an even greater mystery. Man sees parts of life that are beyond his understanding and labels them unusual, freaky, weird. Yet man remains an animal of little reason and even less compassion. Only his weapons improve. Science reaches into space, while others are turning to the occult and the human mind for answers to the greatest mysteries, those of inner space.
6%. There's good stuff. Go on your own. Start now.
Space travel is no longer a fantasy. We are exploring the surface of Mars. Few of us have been in the enviable position of floating through the galaxy. One such man has a foot planted in both worlds, science and the paranormal. As a scientist, Dr. Edgar Michell walked upon the surface of the moon. As a man, he saw the Earth in a new perspective. Dr. Michell conducted unauthorized experiments in telepathy, with such encouraging results that he continued to search upon his return to Earth. Today, Dr. Michell heads the Institute of Noetic Sciences and has published a renowned book entitled Parapsychology.
Science and technology have not fulfilled the promise that many of us held for it 20 years ago. On the contrary, our whole world society is in deep crisis, and it does not seem that science and technology are capable of providing the answers. It is my opinion that as we study these properties of mind, or consciousness as I prefer to call it, we will find and gain new insights into the intrinsic nature of human functioning. These studies in parapsychology are important, not as an end product for themselves, but for what they can tell us about the way the human mind functions. We must have new perspectives of looking at ourselves to show us what we really are, and to recognize that we really were not using the potential that we had available to us, nor were we acting rationally with our inhumanity to each other. Our continual wars, our continual utilization in a wasteful way of the planet's resources, our problems of pollution, our problems of overpopulation. All began to take on enormous implications for me as I had a chance to think about these things from space. I only wish that the leaders of this planet had the opportunity to see it from afar and to gain this other perspective that I was fortunate enough to see.
This is John Carradine. Please join me on an adventure that will raise questions and provide many answers. A journey that will test your sanity. An expedition as bizarre as the edge of the universe. A journey into the beyond. In this film, we show only the facts. We have not censored anything. However, you may need to. There are scenes in the film of paranormal acts which are gruesome and bloody. Warning. This signal will sound before each highly graphic scene. Look away if you are squeamish. Please wait for this second signal before looking back at the screen. Despite our warning, we challenge you to watch this film with open eyes and, above all, an open mind. What is the truth and what fiction? What is religion or superstition? What is normal? Are there boundaries to the powers of the mind? Is there life after death? Are there supernatural forces that affect changes in our lives? In Munich, Germany, we asked Professor Werner Schiebeler for his opinion. Professor Schiebeler is a physicist. His ideas on the subject of parapsychology and spiritualism stress science, not superstition.
Über Parapsychologie ist in der letzten
There are
Zeit
two schools of thought about parapsychology. The first is the animistic. It explains all the paranormal happenings as the result of earthly activities and abilities of the human mind and its subconscious. That includes clairvoyance, telepathy, movement of objects without any explainable physical cause, signs from the dead, and demoniac possession. The second school of thought is the spiritualistic and is based on the assumption that outside our materially visible, tangible world, there is another invisible world into which we enter after death, something religion calls soul and parapsychology calls the astral body. I think that the spiritualistic assumption is fully justified by the wide experience that has been gathered over more than 100 years.
Man has long subscribed to the theory that if an object exists, it or its effects must be capable of being experienced through our senses. We attribute existence to trees because we see them, to sound because we hear it. God is said to exist because we see his effects everywhere. We are reluctant, however, to attribute existence to matter or forces intangible to our senses. Modern science enables us to see objects and energy whose existence was hitherto denied, since their effects were intangible. Also in Munich, Dr. Erich Engelbergs is doing research on human energy fields.
Development of our equipment was made possible by previous experimentation carried out in Russia by the husband and wife team Semyon and Valentina Kurlian. Using a metal plate charged with a high-frequency alternating current and a piece of film attached to the plate, the Kurlians succeeded in photographing the halo emanating from their fingers, as shown here.
This is proof of the aura surrounding the living body. Could this corona be the manifestation of the perpetual spiritual forces of the human soul? Some psychics and mediums claim to be able to see this phenomenon naturally. Dr. Engelberg's associate fills us in.
Our newest technique should enable us to film the energy rays at the instant of their creation. We will attempt to capture them on film as they occur by the application of liquid electrodes. A clear glass plate acts as a dielectric and is filled with salt solution, then electronically charged.
The room lights are dimmed, and is this a spark of life? This astounding technique may one day become an essential aid in curing both physical and psychical disease on a new frontier of medicine. The medical arts have already accepted hypnotism, the power of one mind to actively influence another mind, as a tool in curing mental disorders. Dr. Richter in Munich is also a distinguished expert in the field of hypnotic anesthesia. Dr. Richter explains other applications of hypnosis.
I have specialized in this area for many years now and have successfully applied psychical anesthesia in setting fractured bones, liver punctures, and the opening of abscesses. I'm going to demonstrate the total exclusion of pain in the surgery to be performed on the gums. You feel nothing. You sleep deep and sound. Deep and sound. Deep, deep. You feel nothing at all. You feel nothing. You sleep deep and sound. Deep and sound. Deep.
Indeed, deep and
You
sound.
feel nothing at all.
By the way, contrary to popular belief, the quality of the voice has little to do with the ability to hypnotize. A solid dental probe touches the girl's gums. The numbing drug introduced is a product of the doctor's suggestion and the patient's mind. The operation is designed to save the girl's teeth. Quite often this operation is performed in a hospital, with the patient under general chemical anesthesia and a great deal of loss of blood.
Und nichts stört uns. Nichts stört uns. Sie stören nichts. Sie schlafen tief und fest. Tief und fest. Tief, 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 tief. Ich lasse sie tief schlafen. Sie fühlen überhaupt nichts. Sie sind nicht aufgeregt und fühlen überhaupt. Sie sind total schmerzunempfindlich. Sie hören nur meinen Bohrer. Wir werden ganz ruhig und glücklich das Experiment beenden. Viele positive Gedanken begleiten uns auch von außen. Das ist der Erfolg.
Dr. Richter's hypnotic control is so intense that bleeding has been minimized.
Es ist alles vorbei.
After the 90-minute operation,
Ich werde Ihnen das noch etwas schmerzunempfindlich machen und dann ist es wieder in Ordnung. 2.
2, the tiredness disappears. 3, now you wake up. You are still reclining but sleep no more. Wake
the
up.
patient awakens with difficulty from a deep trance. She can't believe it and still feels no pain. She said it was impossible that she'd slept for an hour and a half. It had only felt like seconds. Hypnosis can be used on many patients who cannot be anesthetized by conventional means. Dr. Richter's technique has vast possibilities in the field of applied medicine. It is yet another glimpse of the vast power of the mind. We asked Dr. Richter, can the human mind, which controlled pain, possibly control objects outside the human body?
Theoretisch ja. Nach dem Resultat.
Judging from the results of my investigations and experiments, I would say there is such a thing as paranormal power potential of human energy.
Energie vor.
And what if that energy is not human? A look back into history unmistakably shows that throughout time, countless reports, tales, and legends seem to prove that unusual happenings, prophetic dreams, and ghosts were experienced and witnessed again and again. Immanuel Kant, perhaps the greatest German philosopher, said, "In this life the human soul is constantly linked to the community of the spiritual world, which man doesn't realize as long as all is well over us, so that they can achieve their diabolic goal of destroying us." Throughout history, the term possession has been used for souls controlled by the outside spiritual influence of disembodied beings. Nowadays, our attitude towards such phenomena of the occult may be more liberal when we try to analyze them as conditions of hysterical delirium. But fundamentally, our knowledge of these outward appearances is not enough to explain them scientifically. The Alpine village of Gries-am-Brenner. One of Father Fisher's parishioners is so deeply troubled that she must be under his perpetual care. This quiet, introverted farm girl, Liesel, is possessed. Father Fischer comments.
Another priest asked me to assist him in an exorcism with a possessed girl whose previously attempted exorcisms had become such a political issue in the church that she became an exile from her country. The evil within her was too powerful, in full control, and we failed. She has been afflicted for 3 years. For an eventual cure, she remains in our home and I look after her.
Suddenly a demonic attack which seems to be caused by a satanic power. In such raging fits, she insults everyone around her, slanders Jesus Christ and Virgin Mary. The urge to believe in loyalty to the devil re-emerges. Animal-like screams echo through the house, indicate the physical pain the girl is suffering. The experience is solemn.
Fuck you! Damn Jesus and his whore mother! I can be God! I am Satan! You have no power over me! Die! Oh, bastard! Pray to me! Fall on your knees! Kiss my hands!
We spent several days together with our advisor, psychiatrist, Professor Resch, in the company of this unhappy creature, who now, in one of the long pauses between attacks, is giving us a moving account of the conditions that he, the sinister spirit, creates in her. Is this a case of psychoneurosis, or is it really devil possession, of influence beyond the range of our normal comprehension? Professor Resch is considering this possibility as evidenced by the fact that he recommends his patient should remain in the care of Father Fischer.
I can't fight the demon. He just takes over. It can happen any time, at any place, walking by a crucifix or a picture of a saint. People laugh at me, but they don't know what he can do. I've been shaken around at night by unseen forces and have been suddenly thrown 6 to 10 feet through the air. Even the church has turned from me. I fled my home in Germany when the first priest who tried to help me was excommunicated.
She has neither warning or control over these attacks, and now hardly dares to leave the house alone. She avoids contact with other people, who often laugh at her and call her names. Will exorcism eventually provide the solution, or is she destined to an eternity of demonic possession? Since the sensation caused by the film The Exorcist, much debate on the theme of demonism and possession has been revived.
Hath destroyed death and overcome the prince of death. Beat down Satan under our feet and cause his evil forces.
In England, the original home of spiritualism, we visited the Reverend Neil-Smit, Britain's most prominent exorcist.
And the healing mercies of the risen Lord Jesus Christ, keep your heart and mind.
We asked the young man whose exorcism we just witnessed as to its effectiveness.
The majority of the problems I've had in dealing with this form of with this witchcraft have disappeared.
Reverend Smith, your reputation as an exorcist is well known throughout the world. How many people come to you a year?
Well, I estimate that there's close on 500 during a year. During the past 5 years, this has been a fairly accurate estimate.
The very same day, we were witness to a strange event which totally upset the experienced Reverend Smith. An Italian girl had come here accompanied by a friend in order to be exorcised. Then suddenly, her girlfriend is seized by a strange power. The evil force had obviously transferred itself from the one girl to the other. The Reverend Smith was later convinced of this. His confusion lends authenticity to this surprising development.
It's all over. It's gone. It's gone. That's it. Come on.
Hysterics and superstition? Or another example, showing that this whole question cannot simply be dismissed with petty sarcasm.
The blessing God Almighty be upon you and back with you always. The blessing God Almighty be upon you and back with you always.
Religious problem or merely mental illness? It all depends on how strongly one believes or thinks. London, site of the world's most renowned haunted house. The infamous tower, which looks back upon 1,000 years of bloody history. Here, groups and organizations are engaged in occultism. The Spiritualist Association of Great Britain is the largest organization of its kind. Its elegant headquarters are located on exclusive Belgrave Square. About 500,000 people visit here yearly, seeking consultation and understanding. With the help of well-trained mediums, this organization sets up contacts with the other side. The portrait of Lincoln is displayed among other prominent psychics. Lincoln is said to have had many true premonitions, including his own assassination.
We may get your loved ones, we may get spirit helpers.
Here, the famous medium Carol Polge receives her clients.
It's a case of who can come through and not who we can demand from spirit. So if you can just keep an open mind, it will make it easier for those who want to link. We'll just open with a little prayer before we begin.
Carol contacts the deceased and translates signals from the beyond into drawings.
May I start with the lady in the blue first, please?
Following a short prayer, she calls in a willing spirit. Carol practices her uncanny powers of communication with the dead by touching hands with one of her visitors who seeks contact with the beyond. Then the spirit message flows through the medium and guides her hand in portraiture.
Calm down.
The visitor, at first skeptical, is almost in shock when she recognizes the drawing to be that of her late cousin.
She probably wouldn't have come if she'd have known what was happening. Because she's saying, I've had it too.
Yes, I do.
I don't think it was very disfiguring with her. I feel it's something that was more painful.
I couldn't have verified it with you, with her, but as you said, do I get it? I do.
Could this be just a clever suggestion? Perhaps a telepathic tapping of the customer? Or indeed, Carol Polge's paranormal talent to view the other side?
I don't see the people I draw at all.
No.
I work entirely on the feeling, and somehow or other, they have to transmit to me what they look like.
Down through the ages, the belief in the miracle healing of sick people stood at the top of the list of paranormal phenomena. From the magical power of ancient Egyptian priests to Jesus Christ, to the verified but medically unexplainable healings in Lourdes, and today's numerous healers in Brazil and the Philippines. Recently, attempts have been made to scientifically analyze these phenomena. One of the most famous spiritual healers today is the Englishman, Harry Edwards, who heads the 9,000-member National Federation of Spiritual Healers. We asked him if his healing talent is hereditary.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a gift that was born with me rather than from my ancestors. It happened without my knowing when I was in Persia in the early days of the war, the first war that is. But afterwards, when I came home I investigated spiritualism as a skeptic. I didn't believe in it. And as I was a conjurer at the time too, I thought I'd see through it. And as I was going round, so I was told so many times that I had the healing gift, that I should be doing healing. Now I want you to tell your hand from your mind, tell your fingers to hold my hand tighter.
This gentleman was brought to Harry Edwards from King George's Hospital. He has been paralyzed on his left side for many years. His movements are restricted to a shuffling of the feet, and then only with the aid of crutches.
Pull it down.
Harry Edwards then tries to mobilize this invalid's energies and really achieves an apparent miracle.
Put my hand on your knee. Now you're still going down. Now onto your knee. Now onto your knee. Now if you can get people to help him this way, gradually, progressively, he'll get use of his hand and arm back. Now lift him a bit higher, and more slowly, more deliberately. Now you can walk. Now if you do that, imagine you're walking along now, making a step each time.
Thank you.
Go on walking. You're walking down the high street now, looking in the shop windows. But you're walking. Now you can have that. Yes, by all means.
Well, that balances me, sir.
Yeah, I know it does. It's very good.
Very good.
But I want you to be superior. I want you to walk now and lift the knees up. Have this just for balance, like a walking stick.
Thank you.
Let me see you do it.
Such spiritual healings continue to baffle clergymen and those seeking tangible explanations.
Not quite so high. That's much better than shuffling along.
Much better, sir. Yes, thank you very much.
Keep on doing it. But if you get too tired, go back to a shuffle for a little while.
We asked Mr. Edwards if he charges the same fees as regular doctors.
No. I've never charged a fee at all. Not a penny, not to anyone, rich or poor.
Although still a great scientific mystery, psychic healing is accepted as supplementary treatment in 1,500 British hospitals. The vast and still unknown borderland of medicine is producing more and more miracle healers of varying degrees of respectability. Another Englishman who has also attracted considerable attention is the tireless Tom Johansson. With select groups of trained assistants from the Spiritual Association, he demonstrates the healing of those individuals who attend one of his public sessions, like this one held in Trafalgar Square in London. In contrast to England's gentle laying on of hands, we observed one of the much publicized psychic surgeons, the most famous and controversial healer in the Philippines, Dr. Tony Agpoa. The American Medical Association and an American television team denounced him as a total fraud. Yet there are hundreds around the world who swear they've been cured by him. This 47-year-old Austrian woman suffers from cholangitis, an inflammation of gall ducts to the liver. Her gallbladder was removed long ago in a hospital, but the operation gave her no relief. 20 years of pain and desperation brought her to the Philippines. Dr. Tony works barehanded, without medical tools. Watch closely, if you can, his every move. What is in the cotton? Some claim that he may use less the techniques of a doctor than those of a stage magician who palms the items he produces and excises. In contrast to the illusionist perception, a doctor viewing this film said,
"Here we see a healer performing manipulations which can neither be explained nor interpreted in medical terms. A piece of tissue has been pulled out. I would say it's the intestine with the mesentery. The black spot resembles hemorrhages caused by strain. I don't understand his techniques, but that doesn't mean to say that this kind of treatment is therapeutically senseless. It is a fact that the patient was completely cured of her many complaints."
Most startling about the operation of Dr. Tony is the absence of any wound, which we will soon be able to observe. Afterwards, the patient said,
"I didn't feel anything when he opened my stomach, only afterwards. I felt that he had his hand under my ribs and that he was doing something, but it was not at all painful. I didn't feel anything either when he took something out. Afterwards, when something in there felt loose, I noticed he was removing something. I had a feeling it must have been something big from deep down. And then I said, now he's taking something out. And then the people standing around me confirmed it.
This part of the operation is meant to exhibit the tissue now cured and free of the black spots. Is this a magical sleight of hand or psychic healing? We shall return to other healers in the Philippines later in our journey. And now, watch the payoff. No wound. Back in jolly old England, a haunted house, or so hopes Benson Herbert, but who has taken a residence armed with a battery of scientific ghost-catching equipment.
Here we have the studio, the sound synthesizers.
Monitoring devices of all sorts fill the rooms.
Experiment in progress. Closed-circuit television camera looking at this apparatus.
Television and film cameras, tape recorders, and sound amplifiers, all to snare traces of a visitor from the other side. The equipment is not limited to mechanical hardware, and here a human receiver displays mediumistic powers by setting an object in motion. Amazingly, our director, Mr. Olsen, demonstrated a pronounced psychokinetic aptitude as well. The sheer power of mind over matter is being challenged in other ways in Russia. The most striking experiments in the field of psycho or telekinetics are being performed by Nina Kulagina. Here, under the watchful eye of scientist Edward Ramov, medium Kulagina was able to change the direction of a compass needle without touching it. These authentic laboratory scenes were made in Russia, where black and white film is still widely used. Journalistic attempts by certain news media to expose Kulagina as a fraud who uses hidden magnets have proven fruitless. The maximum weight that medium Kulagina is able to move at any one time is about 1 pound, for which she needs to concentrate intensively for 2 hours beforehand. This psychokinetic demonstration is very difficult for Kulagina. She suffers from high blood pressure and heart trouble. During this time, her pulse shoots up to about 250. As a result, she can sometimes lose up to 4 pounds per session. Kulagina is also able to set bowls, cups, glasses, matches, cigarettes, and food on a table in motion, then make them drop to the floor. Professor Bender, Germany's most prominent parapsychologist, and other scientists have x-rayed and medically examined the medium Kulagina many times to prove that there is no form of trickery involved when she performs her magic. American researcher Professor J.B. Ryan says,
psychokinetics also prove that immaterial aspects of mankind tend to support the old theory of freedom of will of the individual. We all have this ability, though most have no control over it. In fact, psychokinetic thoughts can exist independently of our conscious effort. Satan says in Milton's Paradise Lost, the mind is a place in itself and can make a heaven out of hell or a hell out of heaven.
Italians have always been a people full of imagination and artistic qualities, and at the same time are open to esoteric thought and metaphysical ideas. The tendency toward religious mysticism is extremely marked throughout all levels of the population. Miracles and curious manifestations linked to faith in God have often been recorded in Christian history. An example is the legendary Madonna of Porto Empedocle. Can science explain away how her porcelain hands one day began to ooze blood? The film was provided by the State Archives of the Instituto Luce in Rome, where notarized witnesses and sealed documentation was collected at the time of the miracle. No less famous at one time was the Madonna of Syracuse, whose miraculous powers held the same sort of attraction for the mass of believers as does the grotto at Lourdes or the Black Madonna of Centro-Ciao. It is not surprising that the statue is an object of veneration of thousands of pilgrims and sick people hoping to be cured. Can science explain them all away? Here, the amazing flow of tears in the eyes of the Madonna of Syracuse has been captured on film. In 1931, the sick flocked to Naples to be treated by the Mago de Napoli, the gifted holy man of Naples, to profit from his short but effective treatments. Here, the Mago de Napoli is curing a severe case of Parkinson's disease. The most famous spiritual healer in Italy today is Giovanni Andolini. In his elegant offices, he's collected documents from medical specialists and celebrities all over the world who attest to the authenticity of his amazing healings. He cures not only cases of multiple sclerosis, but poliomyelitis and Mongolism as well. Here, the patients don't inquire about the methods used. They're more interested in results. They refer to him as the man with the magic hands. Andolini demonstrates how he can make formerly stiff joints functionary again. The girl's withered tissue was paralyzed, but as the healer's hands draw closer, the girl's leg muscles begin flexing rapidly. A pulsating force is loosening the formerly rigid limbs. Andolini demonstrates how his radiant powers even managed to penetrate through a lead covering. A most convincing demonstration. This was a very bad case of polio. Before Andolini's treatment, the young girl could hardly move her right leg without an assist from her arms.
Questa gamba non la muovevo, appena cercava di fare questo. Ecco così, più di questo, non era possibile.
After a few treatments, she's able to move her leg freely.
E adesso, dopo l'irrorazione, alza la gamba magnificamente bene. Prima potevo fare questo, alzare poco.
Andolini estimates that he has successfully healed over 10,000 persons.
Ma 50 anni fa non esistevano i guaritori.
You see, in today's sense of the word, there were no such healers. 50 years ago, they simply called me doctor. People seem to confuse me with one of those doctors who deal with all kinds of strange phenomenon, such as spiritualism, magnetism, and God knows what else. My paranormal sensitivity was first reported in the press when I made clairvoyant predictions of happenings that took place sometimes thousands of miles away. And newspapers continue to write about my telepathic abilities, not realizing that, in reality, I was a spiritual healer. I remember once when a physician approached me with the idea of working together on a book about anatomical anesthesia. We used our combined knowledge on a patient suffering from tuberculosis. The doctor asked the patient to lie down on a bed, and as my hands came closer over her body, her stomach muscles and nerves began to react to my movements. Here's the case of a new patient. This lady came all the way from Australia to seek treatment for her son. I've only been treating the boy for a few days now. The first time I saw him, We had to roll him in on a wheelchair. I used my special powers to influence the cerebellum, where the entire sense of balance...
His mother spoke of her unsuccessful attempts to have her boy treated elsewhere. The description of the boy's strange illness was a mystery. Diagnosis showed that he had water in the body, which attacks and destroys the muscles and nerves. The disease never got any better, but the first glimmer of hope came through Andolini's treatments. Andolini's methods of healing seemed to prove that the energy emanating from one person's mind has a definite power over the life force of others.
And you come from Australia all the way here
all the way
to see Mr. Andolini?
Yes.
Yes?
Exactly, yes.
I see. Have you been also in other places with your son?
I've been to see different doctors.
I see.
Sono 4 giorni, poco.
And
Questo...
nobody could help him by now?
No, they don't know even the name of this illness. They don't know. They think it is this liquid in the body how can I say, disturbs the muscles and the nerves.
I see.
And is, you know, is getting worse and worse.
How long do you think we'll stay with your son here?
Well,
Mr. Andolini's...
Well, we will have another cycle. We will stay another nearly 2 weeks, you know. 10 days it takes.
Thank you very much that we could watch this, and much good luck for your son.
Thank you.
In the Papal Lateran University of Rome, the priest professor Dr. Andreas Resch is holding a seminar on parapsychology. His audience is made up of international students. Interest in paranormal phenomena has increased to such an extent that universities are being forced to take notice of it. For the first time in history, the Church is promoting serious research of paranormal phenomena and perceptions of spiritual visions. By the way, it was for these types of offenses that Joan of Arc was burned at the stake. The Museum Purgatorio in Rome contains a collection of relics relating to mysterious or paranormal events like unexplainable damage done to Bibles, scorched fingerprints, and spiritual images and paintings. Are these simply scare tactics employed by the Church, or proof that signals from the beyond really exist? Signals hitherto denounced, since man has not yet devised means of receiving them. Abortive scientific research was aimed at trying to explain spiritual evidence in living flesh. The wounds of the martyrs that appeared on Padre Pio and Teresa von Konnersreuth. Here's the stigmatist of Calabria, whose body scars resemble the wounds of the crucified Christ. Are these manifestations examples of the mind dominating the body, or are they spiritual signals of life forces continuing after death and contacting us from beyond? We visited Italy's legendary medium in Rome, Signor Fulvio Rendel. We asked Mr. Rendel when he discovered his amazing abilities.
In my early childhood, ever since I was 3 or 4 years old, I've been able to perform extraordinary deeds, move things without even touching them, perceive strange figures, and I even played with ghost children, whom I thought real living beings.
We asked Mr. Rendel if he would allow us to film one of his famous seances, in which an ectoplasmic ghost is reputed to materialize.
What you're asking is really quite a lot, since such things have never been done in this form before. Real spiritualist seances have hardly ever been filmed. But I believe you are sincere, and I'll at least try it. I'd like you to attend our spiritualist meeting tonight.
Later that night, on our way through the Capuchin catacombs, life's whimsical nature is demonstrated to us by relics of human beings whom one day we will join. Or will we? Following a long preparatory ritual, Medium Randell begins the seance in an almost completely darkened vault. This footage was shot through a low-light lens and on especially sensitive film. The darkness of the room should make it possible to see the transparent phenomena. Beforehand, however, the union between earthly and spiritual powers has to be acknowledged at a point of mutual consent. In this case, it's a small table on which the participants link hands, attempting to form a chain of the subconscious. Randell falls into a trance, torturing himself to force the spiritual materialization. Suddenly, ectoplasm, normally secreted from the pores and various body cavities, begins to gush from his mouth and emit a faint glow. A chill falls over the room, and a harsh odor encloses us. Then, out of nowhere, a shadowy figure emerges behind the medium, resembling a transparent ghost. Randell is writhing in pain from the ordeal. One of the medical students collapses with a nervous breakdown. She is mentally in a state of shock. Randell tries to pull himself out of the trance. He reaches out to the hysterical woman, whom he fears the summoned spirit might be attacking in revenge for being called. Suddenly, he's slapped hard on the head by some unknown force, and the spell is broken. The medium is completely exhausted. Sticky blisters break out in his body, and blood flows from a cut on his head. A doctor attends to him while the ectoplasm burns on the floor. Such is the power of the mind, contacting some energy, form of life, beyond what we call death. Does life ever stop, or does it continue in a different form? Are there any boundaries to the force of being?
In the United States, California has nurtured a variety of research groups for the study of psychic phenomena and related paranormal activities. On the beach at Marina del Rey, we invited members of several organizations to witness two unusual demonstrations of the ability to control pain and bodily processes through power of the mind. Petro Hoy, international metaphysician, psychic, and philosopher, prepares himself through meditation for the first demonstration, a fire walk. A bonfire of hardwood pieces is set ablaze. When the wood reaches an intensity of 2,000 to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, the coals will be spread across a leveled patch of sand, and Petro Hoy will walk barefoot through the burning coals. A few chance spectators and our camera crew wait while final preparations are made. After the coals are raked into position, they are sprinkled with sawdust to ensure that they'll continue to burn throughout the demonstration. Near the remnants of the bonfire, Petro focuses his tremendous energy and concentration on the exclusion of pain and physical injury during the firewalk. The moment we've been waiting for is here. Petro is ready. One of our crew ignites a rolled newspaper to prove the intensity and validity of the flames. After a brief interval, Petro's self-induced trance is over. He is uninjured and feels no pain. The second demonstration is attended by members of the Society of Psychic Research and other interested guests. Dr. Franklin Lohr, director of the Religious Research Foundation of America.
Peter, when you are doing a paranormal demonstration, what keeps you from feeling pain?
I move into another world, another dimension, where the medical and scientific laws of this world are unknown, and in that world there is no pain.
How did you acquire these unusual paranormal abilities?
Not really acquire. I was incarnated with these abilities. You see, paranormality is not learned. It is a gift which must be developed. Many people have these gifts, but they're wasted because they do not recognize them or indeed know how to use them.
This gift that you were born with, then, how did you learn to use it?
I was accepted by the Shamling Monastery in Tibet and allowed to study there for 9 years. And it was there that I learned total physical and mental control, in which, of course, to augment my gifts.
Was life in the monastery really like Shangri-La?
Not exactly like Shangri-La, but it is unlike anything here in the Western world. There is no comparison. The monks and lamas live in a constant state of inflowing knowledge. It was an incredible experience.
Assisted by his wife, Zara, Petro will insert 2 number 6 steel knitting needles through his face and neck without feeling pain. And he'll control the flow of blood which normally would result from this action. The first needle is in. The astonished guests are speechless. This is an incredible demonstration. Petro's flesh resists the second needle as he forces it to pierce through blood vessels and nerves with unbelievable control. Piercing his flesh, without pain, without injury, Petro is living proof of his beliefs.
How conveniently the world of man and science dismisses anything or anyone that does not fall within the 2 + 2 = 4 concept. In metaphysics and paranormality, we have different rules with different dimensions. And it is by accepting this fact that men will one day progress. There are so many gifts to be exploited of paranormality to the benefit of the emotional, mental, and physical state of man. The evidence is here, and man can no longer hide behind the cloak of his ignorances and his fear of the beyond.
Petro asked us to film the removal of the needles so that there could be no doubt as to the validity of his demonstration.
Dr. Law, would you like to assist me in removing these needles, please?
Yes, Peter.
Thank you. Just hold on to the needle and I'll pull away from you. Hold it tight.
Petro's control is stretched to the maximum as Dr. Lohr struggles to remove the last needle. Slight bleeding from one cheek is the only evidence of the physical trauma to which he subjected his body. Petro Hoy, a truly remarkable man.
Ghana, where the roots of magic reach into the African earth, and the capital city of Accra is ablaze with the graffiti of invocation. Slogans, prayers, proverbs, and verses decorate vehicles and keep passengers from harm. A fetish of printed work shields true believers from bad luck and evil powers. Tribal cult is gathered to beseech a human-resembling fetish god of supernatural control over disease, happiness, love, and in this case, sexual fertility. In the cultic ceremony, the women are performing a dance conducive to the acceptance of spiritual sex.
A woman is branded useless for being childless. At age 40, her last chance to avoid banishment is the rite of spiritual intercourse. The medicine man calls to the god with an animal sacrifice. Hot blood flows and surges, pulsating animal lust through the throng. The fetish awaits. A secret milky liquid fills the hollow of a ceremonial bowl to the lip. The panting woman moves faster and faster, gyrating wildly and without control as the liquid splashes and cascades down her heaving flesh. She moans in ecstasy while the fetish observes.
Under the watchful eye of the fetish, and while embraced in the arms of the witch doctor, an orgasm, as in any normal sex act, is also reached during this spiritual rite. Now the bond with the supernatural is complete. No earthly union is needed. No man need bed the woman to father a child of the fetish god. Several tribeswomen testified that their children are living proof of this immaculate conception. A tribe from another district worships the fetish god of courage to render them insensitive to pain. Through courage, they conquer pain and show strength. To break the curse on the victim, the fertility idol demands that animal sacrifice be made, that purification take place, that human blood flow. The resulting wounds are treated with medicinal herbs and are bandaged or sucked out right away, so the special powers are exchanged from person to person. These people believe that evil thoughts cause many illnesses and should be exorcised out of the body by the actual inflicting of physical pain. Through the ages, the magic secret powers of the witch doctors aided the tribes of the Dark Continent in their struggle for existence. Contemporary technology has been surprised time and again by the discovery of folkloric medicines such as quinine, curare, and digitalis. If modern man can be freed from the prison of rigidly learned concepts, who knows what the limits of new knowledge will be? We are moving in a northwesterly direction, deeper inland into Ashanti country in search of a legendary rainmaker. Through him, we hope to find out more about the secrets of the power of the mind and the functions of supernatural energy. We found the professor in a jungle settlement near Kumashi. Our miracle man turns out to be very civilized. He travels vast distances in his painted station wagon. Professor is a self-appointed title for Issa, the witch doctor. Issa was called here to induce the water spirits to send the much-needed rain. In the ritual, he treats a young village woman who is suffering from cataracts. To cure her, he must first impress the rain spirits with his total control of the situation. In reality, this Ashanti magician is winning the favor of his audience and puts them in a cooperative mood. He needs a favorable environment to influence the natural phenomena so that his magical formulas can work. The operation in which a spirit is to guide Issa's action begins. Fetish idol stoically watches, the hypnotized girl is taken to a prepared grave, where she is to lie for several hours. By the way, this is merely Issa's warm-up. We wait. So do a flock of vultures who decided to settle near the scene. The hazy sun blazes down. After 3 hours, there is still no sign of a rain cloud. And it's still sunny late in the afternoon when the girl awakes from her trance and is taken out of the grave. Professor Issa then leads the Ashanti girl into a dance as a sign that she's feeling well after the ordeal. The dance, by the way, is not recommended by the AMA as post-operative procedure. Issa smiles serenely and with a few gestures conjures his allies, the rain spirits. And almost immediately it begins to rain. A cloudburst with a radius of 1.5 miles hits the scorched earth. Black magic or just a fluke? Word of a modern levitation has brought our camera crew thousands of miles into the dense jungle between Togo and Dahomey. One of man's primal fantasies is flying, or levitation, the ability to defy gravity with spiritual ascension. Countless cultures equate levitation with higher consciousness. Indian mystics, biblical saints, and Jesus himself, while walking on the Sea of Galilee, were said to have possessed the ability to defeat the forces of gravity. In 1938, the English medium Colin Evans succeeded in levitating himself before a distinguished assemblage of experts in the Albert Hall. Each day brought more details which aided in tracking Nana Owaka, a village priest said to be able to hover in midair. The fishing village we are heading for lies in one of the last paradises of the Dark Continent. The levitation ritual is part of a religious ceremony in which he appeals to the river gods. The witch doctor's world is a private one. We are denied access time and again before we eventually convince Owaka of the sincerity of our interest. He spends many hours meditating by the banks of the river, holding a silent dialogue with the spirits of the waters. The sun is at its zenith, high noon over the little riverside settlement. The villagers doze in the shade of the palm trees and wait for the cool afternoon breeze to disperse the midday heat. We silently pray, too, that our journey will not have been in vain. This man will be able to levitate, to perform a feat of true magic. We had to promise that our film would not result in a tourist invasion. For this reason, we are not disclosing the location of this idyllic spot. We look for Owaka, but it's only later in the day that we find him at a different spot by the river. Owaka wishes to obtain permission to demonstrate his unique powers in the presence of strangers. The sun is about to set when Owaka returns from the river to tell us the water spirits have granted permission for the magic rite. With the tip of a branch from his tree of meditation, Owaka draws a circle around the spot where the ceremony is to be performed. Then he breaks the branch and begins to concentrate. Can this simple holy man actually counter gravitational law? Can modern science be refuted by ancient magic? Is it at all possible? Nightfall, the ritual begins. A ring of fire, the wild drumming of the tribesmen, a monotonous incantation, and then, hardly able to believe our eyes, we stare in amazement through the camera lens. There seems to be absolutely no question of any possible deception or illusion. We cannot find any device by which Owaka could be lifted from above or supported from below during this amazing feat. Owaka hovers suspended in midair. One of our cameramen hurries around the circle with a second camera to film Owaka from the side, in close-up, to check the authenticity of this event. Is there an invisible field of force that this man is producing, similar to centrifugal force? Owaka breathes in a strange and hectic rhythm. His face is distorted with the effort. Suddenly he drops like a stone, takes a few exhausted breaths, and remains lying there, utterly spent. We have just seen the impossible. Is this not further proof of the tremendous power that the human mind can have over body and matter? If this force could be scientifically controlled and harnessed, we would be on the threshold of a most radical innovation in the field of energy. The Philippines. Here, healers who are members of the Christian spiritual communities are practitioners of paranormal therapeutics. They consider themselves instruments of spiritual beings from the beyond. We visited Juan Blanchette. He operates without a knife, opening the skin with a mere movement of his fingers, about a foot away from the patient's body, in this case a woman with a tumor on her back. The tumor is a large cyst enclosed by a mass of dead tissue filled with pus which is squeezed out. While an assistant holds a Bible over the patient, the surgery is performed without anesthesia and without disinfecting the wound. The rest of the tumor is removed with the finger, which is also not disinfected. Now the core is removed, otherwise the tumor would grow back. The patient is somewhat uneasy, and the healer recommends that she pray. When the operation is over, the wound is cleaned out with burnt cotton and bandage. The incision healed rapidly, usually within a week. As far as we could find out, these wounds have never become infected. Without any medical preparations, he removes a tumor-like growth from the nose of an American lady quickly and painlessly. Afterwards, she is able to breathe freely again.
As with psychic energy, the very nature of matter and physical principles of power are being challenged in the USA. In California, we find the integratron, a domed building about 33 yards in diameter and 6 times stronger than the strictest safety regulations require. Here, electrostatic fields are induced and living cells are charged with energy, which enables them to live many times longer than normal. The head of the institute is Dr. Henry Van Tassel. He has made an extremely remarkable discovery, possibly the propulsion used by UFOs. A magnet which causes a rotation of 360 degrees is something quite new to physics.
Magnets are both polarized, similar to the Earth, and the linear lines of energy coming from the held magnet cause the magnet representing the Earth to rotate, developing spin energy from linear energy. In space, the linear lines of energy cause all celestial bodies to rotate in orbit.
We tried to find out if these experiments are also directed towards other fields, such as matters of the beyond, but Dr. Van Tassel would not disclose any more about his top-secret experiments. The mind, a source of phenomenal powers and energies. Yet, what do we really know of the mind? Is it shapeless, boundless? Does it cease to exist when the body dies? Does the mind leave the body at the moment of death and continue living through eternity? In New York, we find Dr. Carl Osis, director of the American Society for Psychical Research, doing intensive work on such out-of-body expeditions.
Here is Dr. Alex Tenos, who told us that he can go out of his body and visit faraway places and tell what's going on there. If the brain waves are consistently different when one is out than one is in, there must be a reason. It must again confirm, to some extent, the out-of-body hypothesis. Do you have a soul which can leave the body at the moment of death? You really want to know, do we have the soul or not? What will happen when we die? And right now, the doctor says no, the clergyman says yes, and the public is confused. The only way out is to do effective, sober research, no dreaming about it, and find what the facts are and how the chips fall.
And now, let's witness an experiment in astral projection. This computer-controlled installation produces 5 optical symbols and 80 impressions. They can only be observed by standing directly in front of a shielded peephole and looking directly through a special lens. 4 rooms separate the volunteer from the testing personnel and read-off screen. The sequence of colors and figures is randomly determined by the computer. Neither the volunteer nor the tester knows which color, figure, or combination will come up next. Dr. Tanis concentrates while reclining in a darkened cell. Without leaving this room, he intends to transfer his soul to a space directly in front of the screen, observe the computer symbols, then safely return to his shell and relate what he sees in the other room.
So take your time and come in and look at the first target.
I'm now standing at the window, looking in.
Very good. All right. Now we have the target number 1 ready for you. Please take a good look.
Dr. Tanis had difficulty projecting the first target, perhaps caused by the excitement of filming the experiment. If it is possible for a part of a being to operate independently of the physical body while the body is alive, then we can assume that this part could continue after the body has died.
Now we have target number 2 ready for you. So please come.
Lower left hand, black eye.
Very good. Now we have target number 3 for you.
Please take a good look.
Dr. Tanis correctly identified 90% of the targets.
Lower, left hand, red bird.
The odds of naming even a single combination of color, circle location, and symbol are 1 in 80.
It almost sounds ridiculous to many people that a person can leave their body and be at another place at the same time and view what is there. I always thought that my 7th brother, David, would be the gifted one because we're 8 boys in my family, and we also have that folklore if the 7th son is always gifted. But my brother David died of cancer at the age of 19 years old. I was with him the night before he died, and he told me one of the most fascinating stories. He said that the night before, something left from his body, and he could see his body in the bed, and he thought he had died. And then he came back. But in his expression, he looked up and he said, it was so beautiful, it's so beautiful. And he says, now I want to die. And during that night, he did die in this peace and quiet of knowing what the other side was like.
Situated between lagoons, bays, and bizarre mountains, Rio de Janeiro is one of the world's most exotic cities. Here is a fascinating mixture of technical progress and tradition. The blend is the result of spiritual and imaginative elements contributed by the original Indians, the Portuguese conquerors, and the African slaves they brought with them. Brazil has an unbelievably rich soil for spiritual phenomena. Rituals and customs express the desire of the people to keep in contact with the realms of the dead. For the Brazilians, the tie between earthly life and the beyond is as real and accepted as the contrast between the pretentiousness of the rich and the romantic poverty of the favelas, the slums. Every evening, worshippers are seen in the streets and squares near churches, lighting candles and placing offerings. They seek advice, comfort, and courage from their dead relatives and friends in order to better face their everyday lives. In Brazil, there are about 30,000 spiritualistic centers. They range from the intellectual followers of French mysticist Allan Kardec to the fierce voodoo ritualists. Somewhere in between are the Umbandas. They believe their healing powers come from the beyond. Umbanda is a strange mixture of ancient tribal beliefs and Catholicism. After a lot of haggling, we are finally permitted to film an Umbanda ritual. The mediums call upon the spirits of the dead to manifest themselves and to bestow upon them the supernatural power which they need to help the respected visitors. Following many hours of meditation, singing, and ritual dancing, one after another the mediums fall into a trance and are taken over the spirit of the dead person. They receive the gift of clairvoyance, healing, or some other power according to the needs of the clients who have been patiently waiting to confer with their own mediums in order to receive the aid of a spirit. We are able to film individual sessions relating to the exorcism of demons and the curing of other psychic disturbances. The mediums absorb the evil spells cast upon the victims into themselves. As a result, they often experience physical torment, while freeing their afflicted clients from suffering. Temporary insanity and unconsciousness frequently occur. The afflicted mediums, in turn, have to be treated by other umbandas with paranormal abilities. It's an eerie exchange of radiations, impressions, and forces, but at the same time, an impressive demonstration of community spirit and responsibility for others. It is accomplished in true Christian spirit, for free, similar to group therapy in the United States, except that the head shrinkers back home are not only motivated by Christian love. The Umbandists are a creed dedicated to the conviction that beyond our horizon, there exists a living cosmos that affects our lives and can be manipulated by the chosen and the trained, yet a universe incomprehensible to us. Can a collective consciousness create a zone of transition between the natural and the supernatural? To the uninitiated, these rituals may appear innocuous and almost silly, yet individual accounts have sent chills on the spines of the most hardened skeptics. The majority of the Brazilian population and several million Umbanda followers are thoroughly convinced of the effectiveness of their spiritual practices. Perhaps we all have much lost knowledge to regain. Around midnight, our hidden cameras capture small groups who meet to be cured by mediums who have attained a higher plane of spiritual possession. Here, a combination of healing, suggestion, and magic achieve visible results and fulfill the needs of religion, philosophy, and psychiatry all in one. Healing through mental power is evidenced in an even more spectacular form here in Brazil, where spiritual surgery is very much on the increase. The most prominent of these psychic surgeons is Oscar Wilde. Even the conservative Brazilian press reports his incredible achievements with regularity. Oscar Wilde allowed us to film an actual operation at the Central Espírito in Niterói. Some healers work barehanded. Oscar Wilde uses surgical implements, but only as funnels for the cosmic flow of energy. Notice the incredible speed with which the surgeon operates, and the calmness of his patient, as well as the small amount of hemorrhaging. Spiritists claim that the psyche penetrates the body, so the tools need only touch the surface. This gray-haired European is Dr. Friedrich Kroner, a highly respected doctor of medicine who was born in Germany and has lived here in Brazil for the past 50 years. During this time, he has founded 2 clinics, both of which enjoy national reputations. As a medical superintendent and surgeon, Dr. Kroner has a classical medical training behind him and a long career of practical experience. He knows the country and has studied the rituals of its people, scrutinizing it also from a European point of view. He was instrumental in getting us permission to film Oscar Wilde. Even though he is a conservative MD physician and performs traditional operations in his clinic, he devotes much of his time to research in the field of psychic surgery. We asked him to comment on his research and Oscar Wilde.
I've studied Oscar Wilde for 2 years. I'm of the opinion that this type of surgery should be taken seriously.
We inquired as to the basis of his opinion.
On X-rays, clinical experience, and laboratory results.
We asked for an example.
Just one of many cases was a woman who had suffered for about 9 years from an ulcer the size of a fingernail, which caused her many restless nights. It could not be removed surgically because of arterial complications, so I recommended her to the Templo de Piare here in Rio de Janeiro. They were willing to operate on this lady spiritually within 3 days. Here you see the stomach filled with a contrast fluid. A small curvature indicates the ulcer. And here you see similar X-ray shots in other projections. And the results, 4 weeks after the treatment in the Temple Piare, it's now impossible to tell where the ulcer was. I'm sure that fraudulent manipulations are carried on in the world today, but not as far as Oscar Wilde is concerned. He has voluntarily undergone intensive investigations and tests in short sleeves and with empty hands to prove there is no trickery or deceit involved.
There is a darker side to the supernatural strain running through Brazil, such as Candomblé, Catimbe, Quimbanda, and voodoo. The white magic of healing has its negative counterpart. All over the country, boutiques and shops sell utensils for these weird rituals, featuring a wide range of magic implements, mysterious mixtures, and potions. The symbols and figures illustrate the fusion of Catholic elements and the relics of ancient heathen beliefs. The Feast of Urshu, the Devil, a ceremony dedicated to the Prince of Darkness and Evil, in which dangerous spirits bring off acts of horror and violence. Hellish darkness is symbolized by the black and red colors. We find the High Priestess Madrinia Violte surrounded by her worshippers. She seems transfixed. The spirit Urshu has taken over, and it soon dominates the other participants in the mystical ceremony. At midnight, in another place which we are sworn not to disclose, Madrinia Violte fulfills the wishes of a select clientele with the classical voodoo ceremony at the altar of Urshu. Blood from a severed cat's head is drained into a bowl to infuse a voodoo doll with life powers. A local family wants revenge on someone living far away. The spirit Urshu is to be used as a means of sending pain and calamity down on the hated person. Madrinia murmurs threatening words and incantations while needles are stuck into the primitive doll which represents the cursed enemy. At first, we were inclined to dismiss these rituals and ceremonies as hocus pocus. But a prominent Jesuit priest put us on the trail of the voodoo victim, a Senora Ortilia, living in the city of Indaiatuba. We located Senora Ortilia being treated at a hospital for a mysterious affliction, the materialization of needle-like objects in her body. She had experienced severe stabbing pains previously. This most recent attack occurred on the night of the evil demon Urshu. The chief surgeon of the hospital, Dr. Ramos, shows us the x-rays, explains the medical aspects of the case, but can find no plausible explanations for this phenomenon. He considers it impossible that the needles could be inserted in Senora Ortelia's arms and legs from the outside in any way. The position of the metal objects between the bones and deeply embedded in the tissue completely exclude this possibility. We asked Dr. Ramos if this could be voodoo. but he refused to comment. Does he not know? Or is he afraid of retribution? There are hundreds of similar cases throughout Brazil for which there is no plausible scientific explanation. If these are examples of successful voodoo punishments, then we have frightening proof of the transference of psychophysical effects, or in other words, proof of the unlimited power of the mind over physical objects. No film team has ever been able to successfully document one of these cases in this manner. Here, the X-rays made of sonora artilia reveal the metallic pins between the fingers in her hand. The X-rays, made in the hospital at Indaiatuba, are shocking proof of the authenticity of our report. A first-class breakthrough in the world of science. Studying abnormal phenomena should have the purpose of compelling man to understand his own psyche, even if this exploration may seem sacrilegious. Since man first became a thinking animal, he has been plagued by the fear of dying, the mysteries of his own existence, and the possibility of reincarnation. We are on the verge of unlocking these mysteries, of finding the key to the gate of the immaterial universe, in which space, time, and causality have no significance. We asked eminent scholars and scientists if they believe in life after death.
Dat is een zeer beduidende vraag.
There is no scientific proof yet, but I think that there are a number of converging arguments in favor of this belief. I am convinced that one day the scientific proof will be given. It is possible, but a lot of research will be needed before you can answer this question scientifically. Not to believe in miracles is not to be a realist.
No, I don't believe it. I know it's true because I have proved it hundreds of times.
Your question, of course, implies that death really does occur. I can accept that the physical body dies, but I believe in the continuation of life. Our beings dwell within our fragile frames, and it is when this frame deteriorates and dies that the intangible spirit, if you wish, seeks out another body in which to grow and progress. When physical death occurs, sometimes the spiritual being or beings are confused, and two or more seek out the same host frame, which of course would explain the many cases of clinical schizophrenia.
I am fully convinced of it, although empiric proof cannot be given scientifically. Nevertheless, it is a fact that only by believing in an existence after death can you fully and freely enjoy your personal life.
I was fortunate enough to be able to see this planet in a new perspective, and I wish that many others could. And I do believe that perhaps parapsychology will form a bridge from the science that we do have into a new science that helps us better understand human nature.
For me, death is not a terrifying event at all. It is the end of one part of life and the beginning of a new one. It is the step into a different world and the appointment to new tasks.
Human beings at the instant of death, are they frightened of facing the end? Or does the conviction of further existence give them the necessary spiritual strength to pass on into another realm? The exit out of this life is often ugly and miserable. The entrance into other dimensions may well be easier. Can we fathom the concept of life after death, or the possibility that there is no death at all? Are we prepared to accept supernatural phenomena as part of our everyday existence, or are we afraid of tampering with the mysteries of the universe, lest we upset the natural order of things? Is each living being a god, capable of generating and controlling a limitless flow of power from an inner cosmos? Will every one of us have the talents that a chosen few demonstrated to us? We have seen levitation. We have observed the moving of objects by the concentration of the mind. We were convinced of the effectiveness of hypnosis. We filmed the energy emanating from the body. We saw operations performed without instruments and healings without operations. We have been privy to astral projection and immaculate conception. We have witnessed exorcism and communications with entities from the other world. We are convinced that there is a form of life after death, and that the human mind has far more power than is generally attributed to it. The world we know is only a small stone in the sky, only a point of origin from which we should continue on our journey into the beyond.